Hello and welcome to episode 132 of Glitch Report. My name is GnittWitt. Thank you so much for stopping by, saying hi, kicking it with me today on the stream of dreams, the show of shows, and everything in between. While you are here, make sure to stop on by linktree.com/GnittWitt, GnittWitt. I am all over the internet, but that is the place to go to find me and my YouTube channel. You can find my threads. I post a lot on threads. You can find my Twitch there. So many things. There's so many things that you can find there, which is so great. You might even find true love. Oh, maybe not, because I certainly haven't found it on my Linktree, so I don't know if you will either. But hey, you're here. I'm here. Let's do this thing. I'm feeling quite a bit better after last week's descent into madness. Like, god damn, I was like fucking Sam Neill in the mouth of the madness during last week's episode. Holy shit. Oh man. I had a friend who listens to the show. Shout out to the friend who listens to the show. And they were like, yeah, dude, even if I'm paraphrasing here, something on the lines of, even if you didn't tell people you were getting sick while you were recording the show, you sure sounded delirious as you got going in the show. And I listened back, and the thing that really stood out for me was that I forgot how to read while I was reading in the middle of the show. Like, that's where I was at. Like, I think where it was the PlayStation State of Play segment, which in fairness, that State of Play kind of sucked. It wasn't fucking anything to write home about. So excuse me for not being super stoked about the PlayStation State of Play, but it was just like, I might as well have been like fucking like mumble rap. It was a mess. So the long story short, I'm going to be my normal delirious self, excuse me, as a slip of the tongue there, instead of last week's delirious self, and we're gonna talk about video games. We got a lot of news to get through. Unfortunately, we're gonna talk about Warner Brothers and the shit that's going on with them, which is not great, but we'll talk about it. We're gonna talk Steam Next Fest, Tony Hawk, you name it. We're gonna talk about it. But I was gonna first say a couple of things. One, this is not a movie podcast. I never claimed it would be a movie podcast, and I'm not gonna make it a movie podcast. That being said, I saw The Monkey. The movie, The Monkey. I watched that, and that movie's okay. It's if you don't know The Monkey, it is Osgood Perkins, the director of Longlegs, James Wan, horror extraordinaire, James Wan. Actually, I shouldn't say Wan. There is no H in front of his name. It's W-A-N. Get it right. And it's Stephen King coming together to adapt Stephen King's short story, The Monkey. It's about a killer monkey. It's like one, like you see the monkey with the cymbals, that claps and stands there and is creepy. Well, this is a monkey that bangs a drum instead of cymbals, but nonetheless, I think it's kind of not great. It's okay. The thing for me about The Monkey is that it's very much leaning into being a horror comedy with a lot of gore and a lot of violence. And on paper, that should be a great time. In practice, what ends up happening with The Monkey is that it is a movie that is too silly to be taken seriously, but then at some point, its silliness and its humor kind of washes away as well, and it's a movie that feels like there's almost little to no stakes. It's hard to get invested in it as a horror movie. It's hard to get invested in it as a comedy, because even the jokes stop being shocking and stop being funny, right? Like, the thing about, like, the difference between horror and comedy is the reaction that it's going for. The timing of the timing of horror and comedy can almost be beat for beat in terms of setup and punchline delivery. It's hard to often create a funny tone and mood and setting the way that horror can, but regardless, at the end of the day, what is horror? It is set up, it's punchline. What is comedy? It's set up and punchline. And I think at some point the punch lines just stop having a lot of impact in The Monkey. It's not bad. It's probably one of the better Stephen King adaptations. I guess the thing is that the bar is so low when it comes to Stephen King movie adaptations that we're going to sit here and say that the Monkey is probably one of the better attempts, when it comes to, taking his stuff. That being said, I think it's a movie that, like, the core story of what's going on is not bad. It's not bad. I just think in execution, it just ends up getting lost in the sauce a little bit and is a little inconsistent of an experience top to bottom. Now, let me go take a sip of this coffee and let's start talking about video games. So I have a Keurig. I have a Keurig because I'm lazy and I hate the environment. But and also I just want coffee, right? Like, I'm not sitting here being like, oh, I need these beans and I need whatever, right? That being said, I don't know what happened to my Keurig coffee today, where there's like coffee grounds in the coffee. So you Keurig, you put the pod in, you slap that bad boy down, and then there you go, you get your bean juice and all that stuff. I don't know if you can see it in the camera here. I don't want to fucking spill my coffee all over my table like an idiot, but there's a bunch of grounds, little floating grounds in my coffee, and God, now I'm feeling like fucking David Bowie, like, Major Tom, this is ground control. What's going on with this coffee, man? I need ground control for all these coffee grinds in my, whatever. If I end up with like little shit in my teeth as we go along this podcast, it's because there's coffee grinds in my coffee that I'm just going to keep sipping. I'm not going to course correct at this point. It's way too late and I've talked about it and it is what it is. Let's talk video games. I don't know if you've heard, but Monster Hunter Wilds is a video game. Stop me if you've heard this one before. Monster Hunter Wilds is a video game. It is out on Thursday, tomorrow, if you're listening to this podcast live. And we got some reviews for Monster Hunter Wilds up. This was a game that is part of a franchise that I've never really been a follower of, a big fan of. I've just never really been into Monster Hunter Wilds. But over the years, what Monster Hunter has tried, or Monster Hunter in general, but over the years, what Monster Hunter has done, especially with Monster Hunter Worlds and now Wilds, is they've tried to streamline the Monster Hunter experience. Whether you play it by yourself or with friends, multiplayer and all that stuff, they seem to really try to streamline this game in order to make it accessible. The idea being that, like, every Monster Hunter game since Worlds and now Wilds is supposed to be a great jumping on point for people who have never played the series before. Obviously, they don't want to, push away fans, long-time fans, hardcore fans, and all of that stuff. But it seems like Capcom, yes, made by your friends and mine over at Capcom, this very much seems like a game that is, especially with Wilds, trying to be the first Monster Hunter game for a lot of people. So with all that said, this is one of the biggest releases of the year. This is one of the biggest releases of the month, a month that has seen a ton of big releases, going back to Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, going back to Avowed, going back to Yakuza Pirate Hawaii, whatever the hell the game's called. But anyways, let's talk Monster Hunter Wilds reviews. Currently sitting at 89% average, top critic average over at opencritic.com. 94% of critics recommending the game with a positive review score in some way, shape, or form. And that is out of 111 critical reviews for Monster Hunter Wilds. Let's dive in, see what some of these top critics have to say. Eurogamer giving it a 4 out of 5, saying the most exhilarating and refined Monster Hunter yet. Even if its attempts to balance the old and new don't always quite coalesce in its ongoing quest to please all audiences. IGN giving it an 8 out of 10, saying Monster Hunter Wilds continues to smooth off the rougher corners of the series in smart ways, making for some extremely fun fights, but also lacking any real challenge. 85 out of 100 over at PCGamer.com. Lincoln Carpenter had to say best in-class monster combat makes up for a wilderness that's a touch too streamlined. Games Radar Plus, a 4.5 out of 5, saying I see myself putting several hundred hours into this game. GameSpot, 8 out of 10, saying it has issues, but Monster Hunter Wilds iterates on a winning formula with another captivating collection of monsters to slay. Rock Paper Shotgun, which does PC gaming reviews, said A hungry gullet of a game, Monster Hunter Wilds will devour your time if it gets its claws in. But an overbearing story might make you impatient to ride straight to more I can't fucking read even this week, let alone last week. Excuse me. But an overbearing story might make you impatient to ride straight to the more-ish end game. So I think it's this idea that, like, hey, this content that you're going to see in the beginning of the game, in the middle of the game, is probably the same as what you're going to see towards the end of the game, and that the story is not necessarily going to make it an exciting journey necessarily. This is according to Rock Paper Shotgun. And as always, Video Games Chronicles. Shout out to Video Games Chronicles. 5 out of 5 from Video Games Chronicles, saying Monster Hunter Wilds is confident, bold, and one of the best Monster Hunter games ever, thanks to its ability to stand on the giant shoulders of worlds and improve in virtually every way. All right, maybe we'll get my reading skills back as we continue the podcast. So the thing I would say about, Monster Hunter, if you never played it, it's a monster slaying hunting game. I know Monster Hunter is literally, I know you shouldn't use definitions to describe exactly what the thing is in the words as it is. That being said, Monster Hunter is an action RPG in which you are fighting big monsters out in these kind of open-ish world environments. You are often hunting these monsters, so you're looking for clues as to where the monster is hiding and where their lair is and where their habitats are, and be like, oh, this is an ocean type monster, so let's go look for the monster in this ocean environment. Oh, this is a desert monster, so we're gonna go find them there. And it's a game that you can play single player or with friends if you want. And Monster Hunter Wilds is really a continuation of what Capcom did with Monster Hunter Worlds, which is very much a streamlined experience from what people kind of know and love from Monster Hunter in the past, and ended up being a huge success. Monster Hunter Worlds, I know some people listen to the show, they like Capcom, they like Street Fighter, they like Resident Evil or whatever. Monster Hunter is one of the biggest things going for Capcom, even if you've never heard of it. So Monster Hunter Worlds ended up being a huge success for Capcom when they put that game out, and this is kind of the follow-up to that. So a lot of people very excited because a lot of people got into Monster Hunter with Monster Hunter Worlds, and with Wilds, it seems like they want to keep those people going with the game that they're already familiar with, but even further streamline that process so that more and more people get into Monster Hunter. And that game's out tomorrow, as of the time of this recording, if you want to check it out. But good reviews for Monster Hunter Wilds, as we have seen so far. Let's just jump right into news. I'm feeling punchy. Let's just jump right into news, especially with this first news story. Warner Brothers is closing 3 game studios. They are canceling Wonder Woman. Cancel culture is at its finest. Now a woman can't even be wonderful anymore. The damn liberals, this damn woke agenda, woman can't even be wonderful anymore. No. I'm talking about Wonder Woman, the game, because they were making a game. We've talked about it, I think, last week or the week before on this very podcast, but it's not just Wonder Woman that's getting canceled. It's also all these studios. So here's what you need to know. Monolith Productions, who were working on that Wonder Woman game, the last game that they put out was Middle-earth Shadows of War, and before that, Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor. They are also the Fear people. They are also the No One Lives Forever people. I think they also made that Lord of the Rings MOBA. Remember that PS3 era Lord of the Rings MOBA? Who can forget that game? But anyways, Monolith Productions, they're getting shut down. Player First Games being the people that made, what the hell is that game called? Multiverses. They're getting shut down. They're already shutting down that game. Now they're shutting down that studio. And WB San Diego are all getting shut down. So I need to pull up a list of the studios that are currently around for WB, because there's not a lot of them these days. Let's see if I can pull that up here while we do this, because yeah, there's a lot to know. there's a lot to know about their current studio. So I have a list. Okay, so here's what we got. I have a list of the current studios going around for Warner Brothers. We have Portkey Games, which is also the publishing label for the Wizarding World. That's the Harry Potter stuff. We have Avalanche Software, which Avalanche Software are the folks that made, gosh, what did Avalanche make over the years? They worked on Hogwarts Legacy. They also were the Disney Infinity people, along with a lot of, they did a lot of like licensed games. Like, you know, they did the game for Toy Story 3 and Cars 2 and all that stuff. But like I said, Avalanche, the last game they just put out was Hogwarts Legacy back in 2023. Probably the most successful studio that Warner Brothers Games has. Well, depending on how you feel about some of the other studios. NetherRealm, of course. NetherRealm are the Mortal Kombat people. They're also the Injustice people. We also have Rocksteady. Rocksteady, as we all know, just put out Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, a fantastic game celebrated all over the world. We also have TT Games. TT Games are the Traveler's Tale people. They're also the Lego people. So they make like Lego Star Wars and Lego Batman and all of that stuff. We have WB Games Montreal, who have made such hits as Batman Arkham Origins and Gotham Knights. They also did work on Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League as well. So, you know, they got some bangers under their belts over there. We have WB Games. We have what looks like to be a couple of support studios as well. WB Games Boston and WB Games New York. I've never, Infinite Crisis. What was Infinite Crisis? Oh, right. Okay. WB Games Boston did Infinite Crisis, which was the DC Universe comics MOBA. And then something called Batman Arkham Underworld. What did WB Games New York do? I don't know. It doesn't it doesn't say. Well, that's great. That's fantastic. So let's get back to the main story at hand here. Warner Brothers Games is closing, like I said, 3 internal studios. It's canceling Wonder Woman. This is what we have so far from Video Games Chronicles. Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War studio Monolith Productions is shutting down, with its development on the Wonder Woman game being axed. This is according to Bloomberg reporter Jason Schreier. Now, Warner Brothers has confirmed those reported closures in a statement issued to Kotaku. Quote, "We have had to make some very difficult decisions to structure our development studios and investments around building the best games possible with our key franchises." So this is what, if you were like sitting there being like, okay, Warner Brothers' past has not been very good. Their present isn't looking very good. What is their future possibly going to be? These are the key franchises that Warner Brothers is going to be focusing on going forward. Harry Potter, Mortal Kombat, DC Comics, and Game of Thrones. Those are, like, if you're wondering what you can expect from Warner Brothers in terms of video games going forward, that's it. They're not going to make a fucking Curb Your Enthusiasm video game where you know, ex-Telltale people get Larry David in a booth so that you can play some adventure game where you're Larry David walking around staring at people, and then the Telltale thing comes up on the screen that says, "Oh, so and so will remember that." You're not doing the Ted Danson will remember that. They're not going to make that game. Unfortunately, they're not going to make. They're not going to put Tony Soprano into Mortal Kombat. It's not. They're not going to put Tony Soprano in Mortal Kombat. That's all there is to it, right? They're not going to do an Animaniacs match 3 puzzle game. They're not going to do a Looney Tunes kart racing game. They're not going to do. Well, actually, this is maybe beyond the scope of what WB Games would do, but Warner Brothers has a working relationship with AEW. I wonder if we'd ever see any more video games from AEW, or if they would even partner up with WB Games for some work down the road. Anyways, Harry Potter, Mortal Kombat, DC, and Game of Thrones. Quote, after careful consideration, we are closing 3 of our development studios, Monolith Productions, Player First Games, and Warner Brothers Games San Diego. This is a strategic change in direction and not a reflection of these teams or the talent that consists within them. The development of Monolith's Wonder Woman video game will not move forward. Our hope was to give players and fans the highest quality experience possible for the iconic character, and unfortunately, this is no longer possible within our strategic priorities. This is another tough decision, as we recognize Monolith's storied history of delivering epic fan experiences through amazing games. We greatly admire the passion of the 3 teams and thank every employee for their contributions. As difficult as today is, we remain focused on and excited about getting back to producing high-quality games for our passionate fans and developed by our world-class studios, and getting our games business back to profitability and growth in 2025 and beyond. Now remember, in January, Warner said that it was going to shut down Multiverses after Season 5. That game's going to be shutting down May 30th. Bloomberg reported that Monolith's Wonder Woman game, which was announced in 2021, had been rebooted in 2024. Warner Brother Interactive president David Haddad left the company after 12 years in January. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League and Multiverses were commercial failures. And the only success they've really seen is Hogwarts Legacy in 2023. And again, I'm not trying to pick on or shit on Mortal Kombat, but Mortal Kombat 1 did not set the world on fire. Remember, they canceled a DLC expansion that they were working on for that game. It was supposed to be a reboot of the franchise, and then that reboot ended up just being more about them making fun of the concept of the multiverse by having Lady Scorpion and Lady Sub-Zero and all these other, like, you know, twists on these characters and stuff that you know and love. So I don't know. I'll tell you right now, if we go back and we look at the studios that they have, NetherRealm cannot make another Mortal Kombat game. They have gone to the well twice now, back to back, and it did not set the world on fire, like I said. I think that if you're going to be keeping NetherRealm around, you're probably better off making an Injustice 3, right? You're probably better off making an Injustice 3 because I just don't know what you could do in the time that they would reasonably want a new game from NetherRealm out to be different from what they've already done with Mortal Kombat 1. I think if you take some of the ideas and take some of the concepts and take some of the stuff that you've, you know, done with Mortal Kombat over the years with Mortal Kombat 11 and 1 and apply that to an Injustice 3, that is probably the better option. Also, that Mortal Kombat movie is Mortal Kombat 2, or whatever they're calling it, is out sometime this year, I believe. They're not going to get that game out the door in time for that movie. And if they're already canceling DLC projects, why would they start up another DLC project in time for the movie? I think it's just that they fucked that up. They fucked up having a game out in time for the movie. And I don't see them getting that back on track anytime soon. You have Rocksteady. Rocksteady reportedly going to be going back to the Batman well. If I were Rocksteady, if I were the people in charge, and Rocksteady was making a new Batman game, they need to move away from the Batman Arkham formula. They also need to move away from the Batman Arkham tone and style. Now, what's easier said than done, but keep in mind that Kevin Conroy, R.I.P. Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman in the Batman animated series and Batman in the Arkham games, last performance by him was in Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. You don't have him anymore to be Batman. So if I'm Rocksteady and I'm thinking, well, fuck, we got to make a new Batman game. What are we going to do? I think now is the time to make a Batman Beyond game. I think Cyberpunk and all that future shit is really hot right now. And it will probably continue to be hot for some time. But I think by having Batman be not Bruce Wayne, therefore not needing to rely on or feeling the need to rely on the voice acting of Kevin Conroy, I think Batman Beyond is probably the best choice. It may not be the safest choice, but I think Batman Beyond is probably what they should do over at Rocksteady if I were them. That allows you to move into a new set of villains. You also get a reimagined Gotham City set in the future and all of that stuff as well. And if you do want to pull from classic Batman villains, Mr. Freeze, in some way kind of exists in the Batman Beyond world. The Joker exists in the Batman Beyond world. You can do a lot of things with those classic characters if you really wanted to, but it also does give you a fresh set of characters to work off of, right? Whether you want to make it, a younger Batman Beyond, an older Batman Beyond, however you want to do it. I think Batman Beyond at least will look a lot different from the past Arkham games. It will allow them to potentially work on a different Batman entirely, a new type of character, a new type of Batman in general. Like, there's just a lot of things that they could do. They could, and I'm getting ahead of myself here, but James Gunn, director of Guardians of the Galaxy and that the good Suicide Squad movie, he is the boss over at DC Studios, right? And one of the things that DC Studios wants to do is that they want the DC games to tie into the DC Universe movies that they're making. Now, on its face, I think that's a terrible idea. I think it's an awful idea. You just don't need this universe of movies to be in lockstep with the games. For one, who knows if this DC Universe movie series is going to work out? It didn't the last time. So who knows? But also, movies are made differently than games. And I don't think that you're going to be able to get these movie heads to release on a schedule that works for the games. It might only take you 2 years to make a movie, 2.5 years, maybe 3 years to make a movie. Guess what? It's going to take you at least 5 years to make that game. Right? So that's why we're not seeing a Superman video game in time for that movie that's coming out July 11th, I believe, for Superman. That's why we didn't get The Batman game with Robert Pattinson in it. That's why we probably shouldn't get a Batman 2 game with Robert Pattinson in it. And I know that with the DC universe that they already said that the Robert Pattinson The Batman series will be separate from the Batman that they're going to have that eventually joins the Justice League and all that shit in their DC movie universe. But James Gunn has said that the discussions already been having with Rocksteady and NetherRealm. Unfortunately, I'm not like trying to be diehard Batman Beyond, but like Batman Beyond is probably one of the coolest interpretations of Batman that there is. That's definitely not what James Gunn is going for with the DC universe. So let me kind of back up a little bit and let's actually say and kind of cover what the DC Studios heads, co-heads. It's James Gunn and Peter Safran. Here's what they've been saying about working with Warner Brothers games. They say that they're working incredibly close with Warner's CEO of global streaming and games. They said It's really the first time it's ever been this way at Warner Brothers. James and I sit with the guys that run the studios under JB, that's JB Perrette. Whether it's NetherRealm or Rocksteady, we sit with them and we talk about characters and stories that we're interested in and that they're interested in. We see designs for the projects in their very earliest stages, said James Gunn. We talk about those, we talk about what the story might be, and we'll say, well, maybe you want to go with this because we're planning on maybe doing something with this character. Gunn said that the first DC Universe game won't arrive for a couple of years. Yeah, it's a couple of years, but we had some pretty active involvement in some stuff coming that's really interesting. We don't know if Rocksteady's next Batman game will be an entry in the Arkham series or if it'll be something different. Will it be a DC Universe game? Obviously, we're not going to get a Wonder Woman game anytime soon because that game got canceled. It's a real mess over at Warner Brothers, man. And I'm not just talking about their games. I'm talking top to bottom. Warner Brothers seems like a real mess. Like, I'm incredibly excited. If there's a movie coming out this year that I'm looking forward to, it will be hard for me to say there's a movie as exciting to me personally as that Superman movie. That teaser trailer got its hooks in me deep. I think the time is right for a new Superman movie. I think a Superman movie that isn't so fucking cynical and gross like that Man of Steel piece of shit is exactly what we need right now. And I say that because, like, Superman as a character, you know, he's not just fighting crime. He's not just beating up people. He's also a character that's supposed to represent kind of the best in us, right? You're supposed to look at Superman and be like, wow, how can I make the world a better place? How can I be a more empathetic person? A nicer person and, a better person and all of that shit. And I think if that movie succeeds in trying to evoke any of that feeling, I think it'll be a very successful, a very good movie. Does that translate over into a open world action game? Probably not. Probably not, right? And that's on top of the difficulties in making a good Superman game, because how do you kill him? How does he die? All that shit. But hey man, it goes without saying. Everybody at Monolith, player first games. I wish all of them the best of luck, because it's fucking rough out there. Warner Brothers Games San Diego as well. I wish everybody there the best of luck. It is hard out there, landing on your feet in this game industry. But I also wish Warner Brothers in general the best of luck, because I don't know what they're gonna do with the studios and talent they have as it is. And I don't know what's going to happen with their movies either. So, hey, who the fuck knows? We're going to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Steam Next Fest, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and more. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the podcast. I continue to be GnittWitt, and just a coffee update. There's a lot of coffee grounds at the bottom of this cup here. It's not a pretty sight. It's not looking good. To be honest, I was able to get through most of the coffee. Sometimes when we do this podcast, I talk so much that I forget to drink my coffee, and then the coffee gets cold, which in fairness, I'd rather have cold coffee than coffee that's with fucked up coffee grounds in it. But, hey, coffee, damn good. As a wise man once said, damn good coffee. All right, let's talk about Steam Next Fest. Steam Next Fest is happening now until March 3rd. Now, if you've never heard of Steam Next Fest, it's a great way to check out demos. It's and I honestly, I think I've probably mentioned this before. I really, really wish that PlayStation and Xbox. I think Xbox does something kind of similar. I know PlayStation does not, but basically, it is a celebration. It is a collection of demos for games that are coming out at a later date. A lot of the emphasis is on indie games, so it is a lot of indie game demos that are available, which is kind of neat. The other nice thing about Steam Next Fest is, like, if there's a game on your wish list and that has a that has demo. You'll be able to see that on there and stuff like that. It'll obviously make recommendations based on what you like and shit like that, which is cool. Oh, this game has a demo. Oh, I'm just like looking at shit now on the thing. Yeah, I want to fucking play that. Fucking put that. Give me that. What is this? Turn-based tactical RPG? No, thank you. Haste. Broken Worlds, Breath Edge 2. Nice day for fishing. It's just a game about fishing. Isn't that nice? Twisted Tower. Monaco 2. Do No Harm. Skin Deep. Anyways. That's happening now. It's ending March 3rd at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And there are a ton of games to check out, tons of demos to play. I downloaded a bunch. So last night I was up downloading a bunch. I have not had a chance to play them. I'm gonna probably try to get to them either Thursday or Friday. With that, they've also announced like all their big Steam sales and Steam fests happening for this year. So if you're trying to get in on that Steam spring sale, that's happening March 13th to the 20th. But if you are also looking to buy some games that feature zombies or vampires, the Zombies vs. Vampires Festival is happening May 26th to June 2nd on Steam. They're also having another Steam Next Fest. If you miss out on this Steam Next Fest for any reason, that's fine. They're also doing a June Steam Next Fest that's running from June 9th to June 16th. And then they will also have a final Steam Next Fest for the year in October 13th to October 20th. Steam Winter Sale is happening December 18th to January 5th. But yeah, I'm just like, it's a lot of third party, sorry, not a third party. It's a lot of indie games and stuff like that, which is neat. Like I said, I'm going to check out a lot of these when I get the chance. So you'll probably see me talk about that next week on the podcast. I'll probably have a video out with some of the highlights from what I've seen so far. But yeah, Steam Next Fest, that's happening. If you want to check out some demos, please do so. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 is happening. They just haven't said exactly that just yet. It has been rated by the Singapore Games Ratings Board, and Tony Hawk has already teased that on March 4th, there will be some sort of announcement. And then it shows like what looks like the logo for the next Tony Hawk game. And then Tony Hawk sitting around with a bunch of dudes. And that's it. Like, listen, they're just teasing this out. We haven't actually gotten the announcement yet, but all signs point to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 coming out soon. Will that mean that it's coming out like the same time as the announcement? I seriously doubt it. Iron Galaxy, the studio behind the PC version of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, is named on the teaser website. This is also the same studio that worked on Killer Instinct and Rumbleverse. They also co-developed the remastered versions of the Crash trilogy and the Spyro trilogy. Call of Duty had an update where they put out a multiplayer map that featured a skate park. And apparently that skate park has a logo for Tony Hawk in it. Why don't they just put Tony Hawk in Call of Duty? I don't know if Tony Hawk, I don't know how Tony Hawk feels about shooting people with guns. He's an American. I imagine he's probably okay with it. If duty calls, get it. But first of all, put Call of Duty, put Tony Hawk in Call of Duty. And while we're at it, put Frank Woods from Black Ops into Call of Duty. I think Frank Woods would be a great character to have in Tony Hawk. You put Captain Price while we're at it. That's fine. You put Ghost if you really want to put other Call of Duty characters in it. Put Ghost. As long as you don't put Kevin Spacey from Advanced Warfare in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4, I think we'll do just fine. Also, I'm going to say this. If there's anybody with any business sense in this world, they will put Darby Allin in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 remastered. It just makes sense. It's like, it makes more sense than when they put fucking Spider-Man in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. Made more sense when they put Darth Maul and Wolverine in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. Made more sense than when they put like fucking Abraham Lincoln or Thomas Jefferson or one of those old motherfuckers in Tony Hawk's Underground 2. Put Darby Allin in Tony Hawk's. God damn it. A man can dream. Let's move on. It's not really even news. It's just me rambling about Tony Hawk and the guest characters that they should put in those games. Xbox has officially delayed Fable to 2026. The word on the street is that it's definitely worth the wait. This is the new game from Playground. Those are the people that work on the Forza Horizon games. So I can't wait for the drifting mechanics in Fable. Now, this is Xbox Game Studio head Craig Duncan, who was on the official Xbox podcast, who said, "So I just want to start with really excited about the progress, really excited about where Playground are. We previously announced the date for Fable as 2025. We are actually going to give Fable more time, and it's now going to ship in 2026. While I know that's not maybe the news people want to hear, what I want to assure people is that it's definitely worth the wait." They also showed off some pre-alpha gameplay of Fable, which is now up on YouTube if you want to check that out. Shows the character fighting different monsters and creatures and shit. But here's what they kind of say about Playground games working on this. Craig Duncan says, "I have unequivocal confidence in the Playground team. If you think about their history and legacy for Forza Horizon, the last two games critically acclaimed, 92 on Metacritic, award-winning, beautiful, played great, and just what they're bringing to Fable as a franchise." So it's this idea that like they have a lot of energy towards working on a game that maybe isn't necessarily a Forza Horizon game, but the qualities that you expect from Forza Horizon are going to apply to Fable. I'm not, again. Can you drift a car in Fable? We'll see. Okay, so he keeps on going, saying, "Just think of the visuals of what you expect from Playground games, plus amazing gameplay, British humor, Playground's version of Albion, so inspired by what's gone before with the franchise, but their take is, quite frankly, the most beautifully realized version of Albion you've ever seen." Albion is the fictional world in which Fable takes place. So really excited about the plans and really excited about the future. And I want the community to understand that we do these things for the best of the games and the teams. And ultimately that results in the best games or the best game for the community. That's what these are Craig Duncan's words, not mine. They also said that Playground Games is working with Eidos Montreal on the game. The last game that Eidos Montreal worked on was the 2021 game Guardians of the Galaxy, which is an incredible video game. So hey, if Playground Games needs help, fuck man, who better to work on a video game than the people who made Guardians of the Galaxy? So hey, as much as it is a delay for Fable, maybe it's for the best. I'm looking forward to it. We'll see how it turns out. Remember the remake of Silent Hill 2? Remember at the time, prior to release, there was no hope in hell for that game. People wrote off Bloober Team. They wrote off Konami's ability to get back into the video game market. And then you know what happened? Silent Hill 2 came out. It was a banger and it sold well and everyone was happy. And it seems like Konami and Bloober Team were so happy that they are working on a new game following the success of Silent Hill 2. The game will be based on one of Konami's IP, but it isn't explicitly confirmed to be a new Silent Hill. This is what Bloober Team had to say. They said the trust built upon the success of Silent Hill 2 laid the foundation for signing another agreement for a new project. The deal aligns with Bloober Team's strategic plan to expand its internal development division within a first-party framework. It said, although details of the project remain a mystery, it is confirmed that the game will be based on Konami's intellectual property. Konami will continue as both publisher and rights holder of the game. The CEO of Bloober Team said, quote, our collaboration with Konami has been incredibly fruitful, and the success of Silent Hill 2 speaks for itself. By sharing knowledge and experience, we have been able to create high-quality production together. Of course, we can't reveal too many details at this time, but we are confident that fans will be just as excited about our collaboration as we are. We can't wait to share something truly special with fans when the time is right. Now, Bloober Team is already working on a new game, so I don't know if this is a scenario where Bloober Team is now a two-game studio, but the other game that they're working on is a game called Chronos: The New Dawn, which is coming to PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC, and it is set in 1980s communist Poland, a wasteland that has been affected by a plague known as the Change. So they're working on that, and they're working on some other game for Konami. So what do you think it is? Let me ask you this. What do you think Konami and Bloober Team are working on? Konami, to me, doesn't seem like a company that is particularly interested in putting all of their eggs in one basket. They don't have a lot of basket to put their eggs in. When you think about what Konami is, Konami's going to put out that Metal Gear Solid game, Metal Gear Solid Delta, later this year. They put out Silent Hill 2. So it begs the question, if it's not Silent Hill, they didn't say one way or the other, but it's almost certainly not Metal Gear. It's probably not Metal Gear. That's probably a safe assumption. So if it's not Metal Gear, and it's not, potentially not another Silent Hill game, what are the chances that Bloober Team are working on a Castlevania game? Yes, there are other franchises from Konami, but the big three are Silent Hill, Castlevania, and Metal Gear. Now, I don't know what I would... Here's the thing. I didn't play Silent Hill 2. All I know is that Bloober Team seemed to be on a bit of a run as of late. I also don't know what I would want from a new Castlevania game. It has been so long since there was a new Castlevania game. When was the last new Castlevania game? Here I am fact-checking this, the history of Castlevania, which can only work so well. Here we go. Okay. Technically. What the fuck? What is this? Oh, okay. All right. Here we are. Okay. Technically, the most recent Castlevania game was a remake of Haunted Castle, which came out in 2024 as part of the Castlevania Diminished Collection compilation, which is an arcade game that was then remade for that Castlevania collection. If that doesn't count, which I don't think it does, the most recent Castlevania game was Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2 in 2014. Like brand new. Like that's it. 2014. It has been over 10 years since we had a brand new Castlevania game. And I'm going to be honest with you right now. Don't shoot the messenger. I don't think those Castlevania Lords of Shadow games are particularly good. That's what I think. I don't think Castlevania Lords of Shadow is a particularly banger of a title, unfortunately. Now, if you ask me, like, where does my Castlevania love kind of begin and end? My love for Castlevania kind of begins and ends with Symphony of the Night. Like, I'm not a big fan of the original Castlevania game, like, you know, the 86 game and Simon's Quest and all that stuff. Like, to me, Castlevania truly begins and ends with Symphony of the Night. And when I say that, I also am being honest in saying that, like, I think Castlevania Symphony of the Night is one of the greatest video games ever made. Like even games today that are in the vein of Castlevania Symphony of the Night do not do it as good as Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I think that game is, it's a fucking incredible game. I know that there's a re-release of Castlevania Symphony of the Night on like PS4 and PlayStation 5 and stuff like that. But like, man, just fuck. Oh, fuck. What am I doing? Maybe I should just end this podcast now and go play Symphony of the Night. Such a good game. But anyways, that all being said, you know, Bloober Team working on something. Maybe it's a new Castlevania game. Maybe it's new Silent Hill. What else has Konami done? Is Konami Bomberman? I don't know. What else does Konami have besides Bomberman? Oh, they have Dance Dance Revolution. Okay, maybe Bloober Team are making a new Dance Dance Revolution game. Maybe they're working on Gradius or Life Force, or maybe they're finally making a new game based on the Goonies. We'll never know until they announce it. So we'll have to sit tight. All right, this is the last news story, and it's a fucking bummer. I'm so sorry. Sorry to just like say that just out of the gate. This news story is a bummer because of the bigger picture. If you just look at it in terms of the habits that people are playing and don't think too much about the broader implication of the game industry, yeah, I could very easily see people be like, whatever. But to me, when I looked at this news story, I was just incredibly bummed out. So this is coming from Matt Piscatella. Matt Piscatella is the executive director and video game industry analyst at Circana. Circana is formerly known as the MPD Group. So Matt Piscatella is a video game industry analyst. He knows his shit. He's a smart guy. I reference him all the time on this podcast, you know, because when I talk about video game numbers and the industry and where those numbers are heading and what those numbers mean, he really is one of the best people to reference. So, you know, it's obviously fun to talk about video games in terms of like, oh my God, they announced this, and oh my God, this game's so good, or, you know, oh my God, they're going to put fucking Bill Clinton in Call of Duty or whatever the fuck they're doing, right? Like, oh my God, video game news, so exciting. Oh my God, did you see the new Alan Wake trailer? Did you see this? Like, that's fine. But I love the game industry. I don't just love the video games. I love the people behind these games. I love how these games get made. I love the stories behind development and the success of games and all of that stuff. To me, it isn't just, oh my God, they are putting Tony Soprano in multiverses. It's also, you know, how successful are these games? You know, what's stopping a game like, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League from being a top tier live service game or things like that, right? So here's the headline. More than 40% of all US PS5 and Xbox playtime last month was spent on 10 live service games. Players are trying fewer new games because of live service titles. So Matt Piscatella posts on Blue Sky a lot, and he pointed out that more than 70% of active PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X users in the United States played at least one of the top 10 live service games in January. While some of these players may have simply tried the game and then moved on to something else, these 10 live service games have become popular enough to command a combined 40% of all playtime spent across the entire PS5 and Xbox Series X and S libraries last month. So, Piscatella notes that the statistics may be concerning for the developers and publishers of other games because the total US video game market spending, total players, and total hours all peaked in 2021. So, if you got into gaming in 2021, like that's probably the most you were ever playing games, unless you had some big change in your life. You retired, or you got a divorce, or you got married, or you had a kid, or you moved jobs, or you won the lottery, or whatever the hell you did, right? Most people were probably playing the most video games in 2021, especially in the United States. The pace of games being released hasn't slowed down since 2021. So we're still putting out games like crazy, but the total hours and total players peaked in 2021, but the amount of games did not. As such, the pool of potential players isn't getting any larger. And if many of them are spending a lot of time on the same 10 live service games that reduce the amount of time being spent trying other titles, this could impact new releases. This is what Piscatella wrote. Quote, "A lot is riding on the new products coming to market this year to hopefully combat or reverse some of these trends." Piscatella obviously referring to the Switch 2 and numerous upcoming AAA games. He said, "Used to be that players would jump from big game to some other game, but they were most often moving to something new that they purchased. Now, live service games suck out a ton of available time, and it's hard to beat free if it's good. So here we are." Last year, an annual games industry report highlighted the growing influence a group of fewer, older video games have over consumers' annual playtime. According to the data, just 66% of titles accounted for 80% of all playtime in 2023, and 60% was spent in games that are 6 years old or older. 5 older games, Fortnite, Grand Theft Auto 5, League of Legends, Minecraft, and Roblox, accounted for 27% of all playtime in 2023, according to games data platform Newzoo. Last month, Circana revealed that the US spending on physical games has more than halved since 2021, with more players switching to digital due to faster internet speeds and the emergence of online marketplaces on consoles and live service games funded by microtransactions. So what I mean by that is it's, the video game industry moves forward with new titles. It does not move forward with a new update coming to Grand Theft Auto 5. It does not grow. It does not evolve with, the next season of Fortnite, right? Oh, they added Heist to Fortnite and they're putting T-Pain in Fortnite. That doesn't actually move the industry forward. Now, if you don't care about the industry moving forward, that's fine. I'm not here to tell you what you should come to video games for and what your relationship with the game industry should be. I am telling you, though, that bigger picture wise, the game industry moves forward with the release of something like Grand Theft Auto 6, with the release of a new Call of Duty, with the release of a new Fable, with the release of a new Mario game, a new Pokemon game, a new Zelda game, with the release of new indie games, right? Balatro moves this industry forward. Whether in a big way or a small way, Baldur's Gate 3 moves this industry forward. A new update to League of Legends, Minecraft, Roblox does not do that. Right? There's a group of folks at work that I work with that are big into Destiny 2. They've even got some new people, or I should say new people, people who have not played a lot of Destiny before or any at all. have joined their group, and it's a group of people at work and they play Destiny 2, and that's fine. That's totally cool. I was invited and I said, I got out of Destiny 2 and I'm not getting back in, and they totally respected that, and it was all cool. Right. But, that's a scenario where with the way Destiny 2 is constantly being updated and, new expansions are coming out and new costumes that you can buy are coming out, that potentially gets in the way of that group of guys' ability to play other new games if they want to, right? Now, in fairness, they might only play 1 or 2 new titles a month, right? Maybe they have Game Pass or PlayStation Plus, or maybe they check out a new free to play game that comes out, at the end of the month, or maybe they're, like, oh, I like RPGs, Avowed is my thing, or, oh, I'm a big Monster Hunter guy or whatever, right? Like, maybe there's a big title that comes out that month or in the quarter of a year or something that attracts them. But at the end of the day, like, why would they spend a bunch of time, playing Avowed, whether they have Game Pass or not, if they could just, spend hours and hours playing with their friends, being social, right? Avowed is a single player game. Not all new games that come out are all just exclusively single player games. Monster Hunter is a great example of a multiplayer game. But why would these group of guys that I'm referring to, that I work with, spend a bunch of time being like, all right, guys, let's all buy Monster Hunter Wilds and let's all play that, when Destiny's free to play, it's constantly being updated, and it's been around for a long time, so it's been updated to the point where it probably has ironed out a lot of the problems some people might have had with that game. Now, ultimately, like, this is one example of one group of friends playing a game together, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. Like I'm all for, social gaming, if that's your thing. I'm all for, I've put a lot of time into Destiny 2 myself, so I'm not even gonna shit on people for playing Destiny 2. That's not what I'm about, right? I'm just saying that, like, there are so many examples of that happening across Fortnite, Grand Theft Auto 5, Call of Duty, all of that stuff, right? That you can see that, like, even if you're not a big social, gamer, and you're just someone who wants to sit down, chill out, bang out a couple of fights in matches in Fortnite or whatever, and then go to bed. Like, okay, so I'll give you a better example, right? So you come home from a hard day's work, you got maybe an hour, 2 hours max to play games. What are you going to do? You're going to fire up like some single player game and be like, okay, fuck, what's going on with the story again? Oh, I'm doing this. Oh, I got to do that. And oh shit, whatever. And then you make like no progress in the game because you're still trying to remember where you were in the story, and then you give up. Or do you fire up a game like Fortnite where you get, into the action real quick? You're shooting motherfuckers. You're John Cena shooting Wolverine or whatever the fuck you do in Fortnite. And then you have some fun. You go to bed and you didn't pay anything unless you bought characters, skin or something. You see what I'm saying? Like, we all wanted these every games, right? We all, like, this is what everyone always wanted, right? I want a game that is constantly updated that I can play forever. I want a game that I can play with my friends as much as I want, whenever we want, on any device, right? You think about, Fortnite, I can start playing it on my PC or on my Nintendo Switch, and I can play it on my Xbox or my PlayStation, and my friends are always there because we can all play together, right? Roblox or Grand Theft Auto or whatever, right? Like, all these games have some amount of cross play in it too. So it's not even like, okay, this group of friends are all going to go buy Xboxes to go play, Destiny 2 together. It's like, no, you're going to play it on PC. I'm going to play it on Xbox. We'll play it on PS5, and we'll all play together, and it'll be groovy. It'll be groovy gravy, right? It's so easy to get into one of these games, whether you play it a little bit or you play it a lot, whether you play it by yourself or you play it with friends. And that's going to be a much harder sell than potentially looking at something like even Monster Hunter Wilds and being like, I'm going to have to pay $90 to play this game. And if I want to play with other people, I'm going to have to convince them to spend $90 to play this game. Right? Oh, one of the best games of the year is Indiana Jones, and that game costs $90. What, unless you have it on, PlayStation, what do you have it on Game Pass? Unless you have it on Game Pass or something, that's a tough sell. It's a tough sell, man. Ultimately, I don't believe that these live service games really push the industry forward in terms of narrative, in terms of gameplay, in terms of mechanics, because often that gameplay and mechanics do have design decisions made to keep people playing as much as possible. And at the end of the day, I'm an old school cat. I want to pick up a game, I want to play it, and I want to move on to something else. Like, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of games that I have played that are live service games, constantly updated games, online games. Hell, last year I wrote an article for Big Red Barrel talking about how, like, if Diablo 4 was a better live service game, I would let it take over my life. Right? Like, I wrote that article being like, man, if only this game was better at being a live service game, I'd probably play more of it, right? But at the end of the day, like, you know, I just wrapped up playing my replay through of Mass Effect 1. We're going to talk about that when we come back from our break, right? But I just finished Mass Effect 1, and then the first thing I thought was like, great game. I can't wait to move on to the next game that I'm going to play, right? Like, I want to experience new things. I want to experience new games. I want to replay old games that allow me to get in, get out, and go. And this is not something that really happens with the live service games. And ultimately, I don't think that is going to, you know, change gaming in a huge way, whether that be narrative or gameplay wise, or even graphically, right? Because even if you think graphically about some of these games, I'm not saying these games are ugly. Fortnite is a great looking game, right? I really, really like the way Fortnite looks. And Destiny has gorgeous design and gorgeous characters and weapons and environments and all that stuff. But even graphically, those are games that are designed to be played on as many different pieces of hardware as possible, whether that be a PlayStation 4 or a PlayStation 5 or a lower model PC with lower components or a higher end PC. So like graphically, like a lot of that stuff gets flattened out in a way that is meant to be, approachable, whether you're on a Nintendo Switch or you're on a $4,000 PC, right? So even like that stuff doesn't always push the industry forward. And my only hope is that there was an easier way. I mean, I think Game Pass is a great way to be like, hey, or even PlayStation Plus to some extent, even though I think PS Plus is kind of a mess. I think Game Pass, like the reason why I like Game Pass is because it allows me to easily get into a game, check it out, see if I like it, bounce off, move on to something else, right? Speaking of bouncing off games on Game Pass, we'll talk about Avowed when we come back from our break. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back from the podcast. I continue to be GnittWitt, and we are talking video games on this week's show. I know we're doing something different this week. I know usually we talk about what's going on in the news and let's talk politics. No, I'm joking, but we're talking video games this week. Thank you for joining me on the show. I have been playing some video games. Really, I've been playing about 3 different games. Also, I should just mention that in case you forgot, I've been playing an unreleased video game for some time that I cannot talk about. So, if it seems like, oh, GnittWitt's just not playing a lot of games these days or whatever the hell he's got going on, please keep in mind that there is an unreleased video game that I've had access to for some time that I'm not allowed to talk about. I'm not allowed to record details about. I can't show footage of it or anything. So like, give me a break. All right. Like if I only come here this weekend of like 2 or 3 games to talk about, maybe I have 4 and I can't talk about the other one. Anyways, I have wrapped up my replay through of Mass Effect 1. I started this playthrough of Mass Effect 1 sometime last year, and then I kind of, stopped playing it when Dragon Age of Veilguard came out and all of this stuff, and I finally got around to finishing Mass Effect 1. This is my first time replaying Mass Effect 1. I've only ever played through Mass Effect 1 once before. This time I played through Mass Effect 1 as part of the Mass Effect Legendary Edition. That is the remastering of Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 as part of a complete collection. And the first time I played through Mass Effect 1, I had already played a little bit of Mass Effect 2, And I found Mass Effect 1 at the time to be pretty rough around the edges. Mass Effect, if you don't know, just for context, the original Mass Effect, I'm just going to pull up some release dates here just so I can get my back straight. The original Mass Effect 1 came out on Xbox 360 November 20th, 2007. It wouldn't be until they re-released the game as part of the Mass Effect trilogy on PlayStation 3 in 2012. So the first time I played through Mass Effect 1 was 2012 when they put out the Mass Effect 2 and 3 games on PS3. So what happened was it was originally an exclusive game on the Xbox 360, meaning that when Mass Effect 2 came out in 2010, it came out on PS3, but you had no way of importing your choices and things like that into Mass Effect 2 when you started your game of Mass Effect 2 because you didn't play through the original Mass Effect. So what they did in Mass Effect 2 is they had this digital comic that you played through that had voice acting and all of this stuff, and basically this digital comic allowed you to make choices, the biggest choices in the game. Basically, it was the main couple of choices of who lives, who dies, and all of that stuff, Rachni Queen and all of that stuff. Those were the things that you were choosing, and then you were basically starting Mass Effect 2 with those choices in mind, right? Meaning that even if you didn't play through Mass Effect 1, which you couldn't have done if you had it on, if you were only playing on PS3, you could at least make the choices and so on and so forth. Then, of course, by the time you were done Mass Effect 2, Mass Effect 3 came out in 2012. You could import your save from Mass Effect Mass Effect 2 into Mass Effect 3, and then away you go, right? As if you naturally played through the game. So in 2012, they put out a complete trilogy of Mass Effect 1. So I played a little bit of Mass Effect 2 on PS3 using the digital comic as my kind of first foray into the story of Mass Effect 1. Then I played Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 all back to back using the Mass Effect trilogy that came out on PS3. And then finally now we have this Legendary Edition that's been out for some time that is a remaster of the original games on PS4, Xbox, and PC. And this is my basically second time playing through Mass Effect 1. And I gotta tell you, I don't know what they did with the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, but Mass Effect 1 is way better now than my first time playing through it on PS3. I really loved my time playing through Mass Effect 1. At the time, I remember thinking that Mass Effect 2 was the best game in the Mass Effect series, followed by 3 and then 1. Now I'm thinking that Mass Effect 1 might be the best Mass Effect game that I've played, and I'll tell you why. One, going into Mass Effect 1, you do not know how the choices that you make in the first game are going to be interpreted and presented in the second and third game, right? So it's almost like you have this wild west of like, man, anything could happen, right? I don't know, like I could choose this person as my companion, as my romantic partner, and I don't know what's going to happen 2 games from now when, whatever consequences of my actions come up, right? The world is kind of your oyster in Mass Effect 1, and I think that is really powerful because when it comes to storytelling, questions that and maybe I've been watching too much David Lynch movies, and if that's the case, that's fine. But the questions that I, as the person engaging in this art and watching this movie and playing this game, me as the viewer, the questions that I come up with are always more powerful and more fun and more engaging than anything that could be presented to me in the form of an answer, right? This is why I think prequel movies are fundamentally flawed, is because when you watch the first Alien movie, you can draw any conclusion you want about the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, about the eggs, about the face huggers, about this group of miners out in space, and the computer system that they have, and all of and the androids and all that stuff, right? You can draw any conclusion that you want about the way that world works. And then you watch a movie like, what the hell's that prequel movie called? Now I'm drawing a blank. Not Alien Covenant. Prequel. What the hell's that movie? Prometheus, right? You go watch a movie like Prometheus, and then they just give you all of the answers. Be like, hey, this thing that you thought was the nature of the world, turns out it's not. It's just not, right? And in the case of Mass Effect 2 and 3, and I'm not saying they're bad games, by all means, I'm going to play through Mass Effect 2 and 3, might even get it done this year. But you don't know what the ripples of your choices in Mass Effect 1 ultimately will be. And that, I think, makes it so exciting, right? In 2, you find out, oh, this is what happens when you make that choice. In 3, you find out, this is what happens when you make that choice. But in 1, you're just like, man, I don't know. Anything could happen. The other thing I think about with Mass Effect 1 is I think it's a better RPG than Mass Effect 2 especially. Because for me, I actually really enjoyed customizing my weapons, customizing my abilities and my gear, and also customizing my companions' weapons and abilities and gear as well. So in Mass Effect 1, everybody can use any weapon, right? Whether you were rolling with Liara or Rex or Garrus, whether you picked a soldier or a vanguard or an adept or any of that stuff, you can pick any weapon in the game, right? The difference is that, like, oh, you picked a character that tends to be very strong with weapons like shotguns and pistols. It doesn't mean that you can't carry a sniper rifle and an assault rifle. It just means that when you level up your character, you can put skill points into having better pistol damage and all of that stuff. So there's that. There's also in Mass Effect 1, the ability for you to customize gear. So you can be like, okay, in this pistol that I have, I'm going to use this pistol to do poison damage. It's going to chip away at some enemy life over time, right? Or, oh, I have a fire shotgun or whatever, right? I have heavy armor, so that means I'm going to move a little bit slower and my abilities are going to recharge slower, but I'm going to take significantly less damage than if I had, say, lighter equipment and so on and so forth. And all of that stuff between messing with the individual weapons, the customizational components and modifications for those weapons, as well as the gear and the leveling of the abilities, applies to both you, Shepard, and your companions. Now, in fairness, you can auto level your companions. So if you don't care what skill points Rex has or Garrus has or, Caden or Ashley have or whoever, Tali has, you don't have to do that stuff. If you don't want to sit there and be like, well, I should make sure that, Garrus has this, electronics hacking ability. If you don't care, you don't have to do any of that stuff, right? And in fairness, like, if you put the game on easy, you do not have to sit there and be like, oh, do I want to add better modification to this, pistol, or do I want to add a better version of the pistol I already have, or so on and so forth. You don't have to do that stuff. But to me, I found it to be pretty rewarding to be like, okay, I've put my skill points into pistol. Now I found a really good pistol and I'm going to modify it. And then I can just smoke people with a pistol faster than I ever could with an assault rifle or a shotgun or any of that stuff. Like, to me, that's a really rewarding gameplay experience on top of the questions that Mass Effect 1 poses, the choices that you make in Mass Effect 1 that don't necessarily you get to see play out all throughout the original game, because that ripples into the second game and the third game, right? Really enjoyed my time with Mass Effect 1. Just a wonderful game, and I think that Legendary Edition is easily the best way to play Mass Effect. So that's a long-winded way of saying I think Mass Effect 1 might be my favorite Mass Effect game, having now finished the original Mass Effect on that Legendary Edition. I will slowly be chipping away at Mass Effect 2, but Mass Effect 2, one of the things is, like, you aren't customizing your weapons, right? you will unlock a couple of additional weapons per class. And, but I can't use, I picked, a Vanguard, I think. So I have like psychic abilities, and I can like toss shit with my mind, and I can do all this stuff in combat, but like, I don't get to use the assault rifle anymore. I don't get to use the sniper rifle anymore, right? I lose out on those weapons in favor of instead getting the opportunity to have these different abilities. I don't get to customize the weapons. So when I get a shotgun, I'm just picking from one or two shotguns, and I just go into the level, and then that's it. That's my shotgun, right? My pistol is my pistol. The upgrades and abilities are not, the upgrades are not nearly as interesting, because it's like, oh, I can do plus 10% pistol damage. It's not like, oh, your pistol's going to fire faster, but do less damage, or it's going to use up more ammo, but it's going to hit a lot harder, and you get to make those interesting choices. Just like, I don't know, 10% faster pistols or 10% stronger shotguns. That's it. Take it or leave it, right? And it's like, well, that's not nearly that exciting. Now, narratively wise, Mass Effect 2 is not only a game about, reconnecting with, the people that you met in the original game, but also the new characters, the expanded galaxy, and all of that stuff. I'm not sitting here and telling you that Mass Effect 2 is not a great game. I just think that like once you start to see some of the answers as they are presented based on the choices that you've made, you may or may not think, oh, this may be how you imagined it when you made the choice in 1, for example, right? That being said, Mass Effect 2 is a great game. They obviously improve on the shooting and the gameplay, the combat and all that stuff. It's just some of the accoutrement around the combat I don't think is nearly as interesting as it is in Mass Effect 1. That being said, I'm going to keep playing through Mass Effect 2 whenever I get the chance, because I'm having a hell of a time replaying that trilogy. Now let's talk about Avowed. Last week, I had this realization with Avowed that I really didn't like the character that I made. Now you might be thinking, GnittWitt, Avowed lets you completely redo all of your upgrade abilities, all of your skill points. Why would you need to restart the game from scratch if you didn't like the character that you made? Well, the main reason for that is because in Avowed, you are also choosing your character background, where you came from, who you are, what you know about the world, things like that. You cannot change that when you start the game, which makes sense, right? You can't go from, I'm a war hero for the first third of the game, and now I'm, some like scholar or, hoity-toity high-class member of society, and all of my, information about being a war hero is just gone. Like, obviously, makes sense, right? Same thing with Mass Effect, right? Like, you can't go from, oh, I was, the war hero badass in Mass Effect 1 to being some different person entirely in Mass Effect 2, right? It's just not how it works. You either make a new character or don't, and you just live with the consequences. That being said, in Avowed, when I made my character was a arcane scholar. So I was somebody who was very knowledgeable about the world of Avowed and the living lands, and I was very book smart, right? And at the time, I just thought like, oh, this would be a great way for me to learn from my character about the world, right? Avowed takes place in the Pillars of Eternity universe. I did not play the Pillars of Eternity games that much, but I figured, oh, by my character being very knowledgeable about the world, I will learn through my character and the conversation. That did not happen. In Avowed, when you are having a conversation with characters, if a term or a word comes up that you're not familiar with, it is often or unique to the world of Avowed. It is often highlighted, and there's like a dictionary that you can use to look up what that word means. Similar in Mass Effect 1, the difference is that Mass Effect 1 has a codex, and that codex is just like, hey, if you want to know all about the Asari alien race or the Geth or any of this other stuff, you can not only read it at any time, you don't have to be in a conversation to do it, but also it is narrated for you, so you can just listen to what this guy has to say about the Asaris or the First Contact War and all this other shit in Mass Effect. And it also expands as you play through the game. So if you If you get to the part in the game where you finally meet the Geth, or there's some update about the Geth, it'll be updated for you to always refer back to. Also, I'm just going to say that I really enjoyed the codec in Mass Effect 1. I just think like the guy's voice acting is really good, and him reading it is really something that I appreciate. But it's also usually not essential stuff in Mass Effect 1 or 2 or 3. Like, you do not have to read through that codec or listen to the codec entries if you don't want to. Versus, I feel like Avowed is such an alien. The world of Avowed is so alien to me that I'm just like, what the fuck is an Arderian again? What is an Envoy? What is any of this stuff? Like, and then that's like really base level stuff for what's referenced in the game, especially later on. But still, I was just like, what continent did I come from again? What place did Kai, my companion, come from? What is he again? I don't know, right? It's just, I think it doesn't do a very good job of getting people into that world. I think Avowed, unfortunately, despite being an action RPG compared to the Pillars of Eternity games, I think Avowed does a really, really bad job of getting people into that universe and that world in terms of understanding its nuances, the political players in stuff like that. I just don't think it does a very good job. And unfortunately, playing as an arcane scholar, I did not learn through my character. So I just thought, wow, fuck this. I'm not liking my dialogue choices. I don't really care about this because it's not making a lot of sense to me. Let's make a new character. So what I did is I made a new character, and my character was basically a spy for the government. So instead of being this scholar sent to the Living Lands to learn about the Dream Scourge and the plague that's infecting the land and all that stuff, I was basically a spy who just is somebody who does a lot of dirt for the Emperor and is just out there being kind of doing dirt. I'm a detective just doing spy shit, killing people, whatever the dirty work that the Emperor needs, I will do, which I think to me made a little bit more sense in terms of the type of dialogue choices I tended to go for anyways, whether they were unique to my character's background or not. That all being said, I have total put about, I don't know, eight or so hours into Avowed, between about the 5-ish hours that I spent with my original character and about the 3.5-ish hours that I spent with my new character. And I just got to say, Avowed is not for me. It's just not. Even with this new character, I don't necessarily find the Living Lands, the world of Avowed, that interesting. I don't find the main story to be that exciting. You get to you enter, when you finally get to out of the tutorial, you are in this like small like seaside town, and then you eventually make your way to the big city, and I don't think the big city that they have, at least at the start of the game, is that interesting. I don't think what happens to you as the character kind of coming to terms with your godlike abilities and your godlike background, like that stuff doesn't do anything for me. And I even got tired of just running around the world. Like, I know that world is really lean and it's really smart and tightly designed in terms of, hey, we're not going to waste your time running around looking at bullshit. Like, if you go off the beaten path, you are often rewarded for doing so. The combat is pretty tight, but like, I don't know. It's just, it really wasn't like, I don't think Avowed is, so it's one of those damning things where like, I don't think Avowed is a bad game. I think it is a very smart, well-made game. And I tend to like a lot of those games. I like Obsidian's past games, to some extent. I like the type of the games that Avowed is influenced by. That's just how I roll. Right? Unfortunately, it just doesn't do a lot for me when it's put together. I just feel like even if I had to spend more time playing a much bigger, bloated game than Avowed, I find it that it might be a game that takes place in a world that I find a little bit more interesting, or a main story that I'm a little more engaged with, or there might be additional, levels, or gameplay systems or mechanics that suck me in, even if they're busy work in a way that Avowed really doesn't have. Like, Avowed is very lean. It, when you do your combat, it's tight. Way tighter than almost any other first-person action RPG you're going to find, right? You're not wasting a bunch of time with bullshit, crafting and upgrades and all that stuff. Like it's very to the point. Unfortunately, I just feel like the point that it eventually gets to has not grabbed me in about the 8 or so hours that I've been playing. So I think I'm just going to put Avowed away and either spend more time with Mass Effect 2, which is an older game that I'm playing. I also have a family member who is playing through Yakuza 0 for the first time. I have played through Yakuza Kiwami 1. It's the only Yakuza game I've played. So I have downloaded Yakuza 0, and I might get into Yakuza 0 instead of playing Avowed. But Avowed has done nothing for me, which is a shame, but what are you going to do? I got it on Game Pass. It's not like I bought it. It's not the end of the world. And if people are really saying, oh, GnittWitt, it gets so much better 10, 12 hour, 15 hours in, then maybe I'll go back to Avowed. But for now, it's just not doing much for me. So if I look over at my games installed, like I said, I have a lot of Steam Next Fest games installed. I'm going to be playing a bunch of those. We'll talk about those sometime next week. I also have Internal Strands downloaded. That's one of the more recent open world action RPGs that came out earlier this year. It's on Game Pass. I might check that out. And also Ninja Gaiden Black 2 is on Game Pass. I might check out Ninja Gaiden Black 2. That was the surprise drop as part of the Xbox Developer Direct conference that Microsoft had earlier this year. If I go over to my Xbox, you'll probably catch me playing either Eternal Strands or Yakuza 0. I also have Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader. I might mess around with that a little bit. In terms of demos, I have the Progress Racer RPG demo. I have the Descenders Next demo. I have Wheel World. I have Frontline Fury Trenches Mud and Blood. Deliver at All Costs. I have that Game of Thrones King's Road demo installed. The Gothic 1 remake demo. Fellowship, Mecha Breaker, Quest Industries demo. I might check out some other demos as part of Steam Next Fest. But that is going to do for the podcast this week. I don't know. I'm happy with it. I think it turned out a lot better than last week's show. And I've been GnittWitt. You can find everything that I do over at my Linktree, linktree.com/GnittWitt, GnittWitt. Happy gaming. Enjoy all the video games that you're playing, whether it's, recent releases, newer games, or older games, or if you're playing a live service game, hey, I won't knock you for it as well. All right. Enjoy your gaming, and we'll see you all next week. Take it easy.